Well, welcome everybody. It's episode 6 of Min Ed Soda podcast with the doctor and the duffer. I'm Kip Link. I am the duffer. My colleague that helps lead the way is the doctor, Dr. Todd Van Erp. Welcome to another episode, and we're cramming two into this week.
I know. I am tired. I am exhausted. The work is heavy because we're recording 2 this week, and I'm totally full of baloney. So I did have to chuckle a little bit, and I thought you were going to make some wise comment about this, Kip, when you said helping you lead the way with his bifocals on, but you were kind enough not to say that. So thank you for being so kind today.
Yeah, well, if I had to point out that you were wearing yours, I'd have to point out that I'm wearing mine.
Yes, good point.
But hey, the really cool thing, and our guest today, I'll let you do the intro here too in just a second, but all three of us wearing our Minnesota Gopher wear today. Woo woo!
Woo! I feel like we should be singing the rouser and some pumping out a few Skyumas, but we might have to hold off on that.
Yeah, so those that are watching on YouTube, you get to see all the different Gopher wear that the three of us have on today. So now that we've already tipped the scale that we've got our guest, I'll let you introduce our guest for episode number 6.
Awesome. Well, I am super excited that this person is joining us today. And our guest for today is Carey Johnson. She is the principal at Parker's Prairie High School in Parker's Prairie, Minnesota. For those of you that don't know where that is, it is just north of Alexandria, about 20 miles. So Carey is also the president of the Western Division of MASSP. So we're super thrilled to have her today. So welcome, Carey. And I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself, but also tell us a little bit about your background. Like, how did you end up as the principal of Parker's Prairie? It's not like you just dropped out of the sky and there you were, but like where are you originally from? Where'd you go to school? Where did you teach at before you became a principal? Give us all those juicy details.
Okay, well, thank you for having me today. I was a band director in Leroy Ostrander, southeastern Minnesota, for 14 years. I loved my job. It was so much fun to make music every single day. Really thought that I could see beyond my 4 walls and be effective school-wide. And so I pursued my master's in curriculum, and then from St. Scholastica, and then my admin through St. Mary's. My undergrad was from Concordia, so go Cobbers. And then was looking for a place to move closer to home. I grew up in Alexandria, went to Jefferson High School, and Parker's Prairie opened up. I've been here 10 years now. This is my 10th year. I have an 8th grader in the building and a sophomore in the building, and they are super proud to be the principal's sons.
Oh boy. Are there ever times when you come home and there are conversations at the dinner table where they might be asking you about, I can't believe that the principal did this today or made this decision. I can't believe we didn't call off school, because of course the principal makes that call. But do you ever have any of those conversations?
Yes, we had one just last week. Why on earth did you lock the locker room during lunch? Why would you do that? You don't understand. Nobody likes those decisions. Okay, that's cool.
Well, it's interesting because your boys didn't get a choice, right? Like they
Right.
grew up with you. They've always been in school with you being the principal. I mean,
Right.
So but I just recently applied for the superintendency in the district that I live in. I live in Dassel Cokato School District, and I got invited for an interview. I didn't make it to round 2, but my son, who's a high school junior right now and will be a senior next year, like he may have been actively campaigning against me into the job. Like, Dad, no, like nobody likes the superintendent. Like, we don't want you to do that. So at least your kids kind of grew up with it and aren't advocating against you.
Yeah.
Like mine, and he didn't, but he might have, maybe. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, you definitely maintain the cool factor when you are not in the building. So,
Right.
Yeah.
I did enjoy the one time my youngest said, I said, what happened in school today? And he said, the principal came in and talked to us about, I don't even remember what it was, but he was excited that the principal had come to visit. It totally had separated me from the principal, and I thought it was pretty cute.
And I've got my own thing going on right here. I don't know if you can hear people walking through. My wife is, apparently she's not aware that we are recording right now. So Nancy, if you're listening to this podcast, you made it without even asking. So nice job. Carey, one of the reasons that we wanted to have you on is we wanted to hear from a principal's perspective. The last 13 months have been absolutely crazy. Nothing that any of us have ever experienced before. So we wanted to have you on just to kind of ask you from a school leader's perspective, what are some lessons that you have learned through this pandemic? And, you know, I kind of want to talk about what are some like professional and principal type things that you have learned, but then also what about some personal things too? So let's start with the professional and principal type things that you have learned from this pandemic.
I have learned that all the voices need to be heard. And that includes the school community itself, not just the students or just the staff, but we need to make decisions with as much input as we can have. I have learned that the community is very supportive. Not that I didn't know that before, but they have a lot of trust, and we can't ignore the trust that they have in us. I have learned that the staff can't be asked to do more than I mean, they are superhumans. That's what I've learned, that the teachers are superhumans, and they have been asked to do more than ever before, ever been trained for. And it's so important that as building leaders, we support our staff. So I've learned to listen to the staff especially, and ask questions that might have need for their voice. How can I help? My job is to support you. What do you need? What do you need? And even if it's do you need a 10-minute break? I got you. It's overwhelming right now, the things that they've been asked to do. And I'm just really, really impressed with all that teachers have been asked to do.
I think I shared this in our cohort the other day, Carey, in the facilitating meaningful feedback. But
Yeah,
you know, like with teachers and morale and the climate and culture, like teachers now, like they have been so adaptable and flexible and trying to make everything work for the last 13 months. But they've also now hit the breaking point where us telling them, "Hey, thank you for being so flexible and adaptable," has run its course, right? Like that's not taking care of them anymore.
right, right, right.
Um,
Yeah, I wish I had that answer, because I think about that a lot. Like, do we need a coffee break? Yes, we all need a coffee break, but how can I facilitate what it is they need when I don't know what it is that they need right now? We've got 30 days left.
And you earlier you had mentioned connecting with the community more. What are some ways that you know, you said I learned that like I need to do it more. What are some ways that you have like been intentionally connecting with community voices through this process?
We have worked with the local Lions, the local Lady Lions, and looking for support from the fire department, from the local groups when we need things. Like, for instance, graduation last year. Graduation was outdoors, and the fire department rallied together and got fireworks together for the end of the ceremony, got a big screen jumbotron so all the kids could be on the jumbotron, worked around the sound systems that were needed. They were able to help us out, and we're very excited to do so. But also the voices of the parents. A survey at the end of the school year last year, a survey at the beginning of the school year. What do you want? Helped inform both the building decisions, but also the school board's decision of going back in person right away from the beginning. And so we've actually been in person since the beginning, but our teachers have been doing Zooming and synchronously Zooming and classroom music or classroom music. That's the old teacher in me. Classroom instruction at the same time. And it was really important that we hear that the majority of our community supports us being in schools, supports us as we go through the COVID protocols, all of those things. And we were able to make it happen.
I'm also curious, you talked a little bit about, I mean, both of those things we kind of talked a little bit were about like climate and culture,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of supporting our teachers, listening to all of our voices. What did and you talked now about it being synchronous through Zoom for our distance learners and um, trying to do both. But are there things that you and your team learned around instruction that, like, boy, going forward, we really need to continue to do that? Like, this can't go away just because we're no longer in the pandemic.
I gotta say, that's my favorite part of COVID. If you can have a favorite part of COVID, I think it's launched education forward in a really great way. We did the power standards. We've evaluated our standards individually. What can we let go of? There is so much in curriculum. What do we really want kids to get out of these, and how do we make that happen? How do we facilitate that? How can we be creative? And it has been so much fun this year to watch the lessons come down, to get into a new groove, for us all to be creative. For example, we have an art teacher who teaches all kinds of different mediums, of course, but one is sculpture. Well, when everybody was last spring in uh, out of the school building, she figured out so many fun ways to do sculpture class, given what's in your yard, what's in your home, whatever it may be. And just, it's just so much fun to see the teachers be as creative as they can be. And I know that they enjoyed the creativity.
Yeah, I think there have been a lot of opportunities that have been afforded to us because of COVID, and I think that's one of them. Anything around grading that you
Yeah,
saw that?
yeah, I was just going to say, the other thing is I've heard a lot of voices now being curious about, why do we grade the way we do? And I think it's time for us to start the conversation. I'm kind of energized by it because I've had a spattering of teachers interested in it over the last several years, but this has really brought the grading into the limelight. And I know that that's the way it's been in other buildings as well. Other principals have said the same thing. Do we take this moment to determine how we grade for today's learner?
Mm-hmm. As coincidence would have it, before this, I was just listening to a webinar by Alfie Cohn and talking about grading and the damage that grades do. Oh man, there's so much there. We could have a whole 5 seasons of podcast, Kip, if we just focused on the grading and assessment aspect of education.
Well,
You were going to say something,
I
Kip.
was. Sheldon Eakins just put a podcast out the other day too. Actually, it was a webinar, but it kind of comes more as a podcast around that grading and grading for equity. And it also then reminds me back to our first guest was Nick Klausman from the Wilmer Alternative Learning Center, and the conversation around like what they were doing there at their alternative learning centers. Why aren't we doing some of those things more at our traditional high schools as well? Like keeping our grade book open, and like if you define your standards and you know what you need to get out of students for them to pass, so to demonstrate the knowledge and the skills that they need to have, and they get 60% of the way there, and then life happens or trauma or something. Why are we making them start all the way over? Is there a way that we can, I'm using air quotes, leave our grade book open, that it doesn't end at the quarter or at the semester or the trimester or whatever you're on, or even the year, right? Like it just has this opportunity for them to come back. And I think we're seeing more and more school leaders and teachers kind of go, yeah, why not? Because we've had to be more accepting of uh, how we're receiving projects and assignments through distance learning when it happened, and that I think there's a lot of light switches that are being flipped in that direction, kind of like you mentioned, Carey.
As a band teacher, I always looked at the growth itself. Like, where did they go, or where did they start, and how far did they go through this time period, whatever it may be. And then when you compare them to themselves, grading is pretty easy. When you compare them to some arbitrary number and grid, it doesn't signify what they have learned at all.
And we're not always grading for learning. Sometimes we're grading for compliance.
Yes.
Right? Like we're grading on the seat time, participation. Did you turn it in on time? All things that are more on compliance than actual learning or a demonstration of some kind of skill or ability. And that's the beauty of when you do start. Just earlier today, I was having a conversation with a school leader that they were talking about, like, we're kind of starting to dabble in standards-based grading. And I would really say, well, don't dabble in the standards-based grading, dabble in the standards-based instruction, right? Like, once you get the instruction portion of being standards aligned and standards-based, then the assessment becomes easy.
I've really been going with this a lot over the last year. Like, what can we give our kids to have the onus on them for their learning? I'm very intrigued by taking the ALC concept and bringing it to the regular high school. If this is the standard and we were to really break it down, then why can't a student break it down for themselves and say, this is what this standard means to me, and this is how I'm going to prove to you that I have mastery? I think we need to let go of the tradition of sit and get, or I am going to impart on you this knowledge, and rather go more towards the facilitate the learning and let the kids own it. I think they'd have a hoot with it.
And adding on to that, right? Like, even how we are assessing, and again, like, you're hitting on so many things that I had a conversation with somebody else this morning. I had a cohort this morning, so that was kind of what was going on. But same thing of, it was talking about a math teacher that designed this unit end project for the kids, and the teacher was a little bit unsure because it was going to take 4 days for them to do this project. And then, and then he was giving an assessment or the unit test on top of it. And as I was talking with the leader, I'm like, well, if the project was that good, why would we give an assessment, right? Like, couldn't we just assess the project and know if they got it? If we built the project well, or the parameters around the project, we don't need the test anymore. They just did it in a real life example. And that's way more powerful than the 30 questions on your unit test.
Yep. Great point.
Answers the, when are we ever going to use this? Well, here you're using it. They'll own it a little more that way.
Yeah. When are we going to use, what's the compelling why for me to learn this?
Yeah.
And where am I going to use it? So
I don't think we've ever had learners more in tune with the why and more needing of the why than we do right now.
Yep, you got it. All right. So, we've been asking you about what have you learned from the pandemic professionally. We're going to jump over to the personal piece in just a little bit. But before we do that, Carey, this is the part of the program that I really like to, this has kind of become my thing here, Kip, hasn't it? The rapid questions. Okay. So there will not be a buzzer or anything like that if you take too long, but I got about 10 questions here I'm going to shoot at you. Okay. So first one, as a former band director, what's your favorite instrument?
The piano. And if it were in the band itself, I was a percussionist and a flautist. So the flute. Okay.
Nice. If you could buy any type of food right now, what would you buy?
I would buy pho. I don't know if you know what that is, the Vietnamese soup.
Yes. We actually got some of that. Our kids really liked it.
Yeah.
What color is your toothbrush?
It is black and green.
Black and green. If you could be any animal, what would it be and why?
Absolutely, it would be a pet dog. Don't they have the life?
I'm just going to let you know right now, Carey, I asked Kip these same questions before you came on. And you haven't answered any of them the same as Kip. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Are you
but-
more of an Italian kind of favorite fooder?
Oh, it was steak.
Oh, sure.
And he's like,
Steak.
right now, like in the middle of the day, yep, steak.
Okay.
What about at night? Steak.
Steak. Yeah. Late night snack.
Steak.
You got it. Steak. Yeah.
Cold. After it's been grilled and it's been in your fridge for a couple hours, 9:30, a cold steak out of the fridge is awesome.
All right, Carey, back to the questions here. What is one of the things you would put on your bucket list?
I have a bucket list that includes number 1 being travel to Iceland.
Oh.
Ding,
Awesome.
ding, 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 ding. We had a match. I said
Really?
travel to more foreign countries.
Yes.
There you go. There you go.
Carey, who's your favorite superhero and why?
My favorite superhero. I would have to say Mike Troke is a superhero for me. I don't know if you know him through the education world, but I'm gonna say he's my superhero.
Okay.
Someday I want to be Mike Troke. Yeah.
Okay. Who do you admire the most?
Admire the most. I really admire my parents.
That's a match for Kip too. He said his dad.
Hey,
What is your favorite summer activity?
my favorite summer activity would be reading outside in the sunshine.
Not a match with Kip.
Okay.
He said water activities.
Close. You could be reading a book on the pontoon. That would count.
It's true.
You-
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
If a movie was made of your life, what genre would it be and who would play you?
Okay. It would be a rom-com.
Ding,
And-
ding.
Yeah, okay. And I don't know, I just feel like it would be the Tasmanian devil dressed in a suit that would play me. There's a lot going on.
That I would have not expected that one out of you.
Okay.
If you could be any flavor of ice cream, what ice cream flavor would you be and why?
Vanilla, because it doesn't get better. It's really a good flavor. People underestimate it.
That is true. I do like vanilla.
Yeah.
And
And it's really
you-
hard to screw it up,
True.
right? Like there's no
That-
gamble.
There's no gamble. It's
You
gonna
know
be
it's going
delicious.
to taste good.
Yep.
okay, last question for you.
Okay.
What is your favorite thing about someone in your family?
My favorite thing about my youngest son is that no matter how angry I can make him, he always gives me a hug. Always. Even when he's irritated with me, and he'll tell me that. I get super irritated with you and I love you. And it's a good part of my day.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
He's an 8th grader?
He's an 8th grader. Uh-huh.
Gosh, man.
The good news is our audience isn't very big, so that's probably not going to embarrass him because nobody's going to know.
Yeah, when we drop this episode though, Carey, if you've got his email address, Kip and I could send it to him just so
Oh,
that he
he
knows
would
that.
love that. He also loves it when I acknowledge him in the hallway. One day I gave him a hug.
Oh, you didn't.
Mhm.
And how did he take that?
Cold, but he took it.
Nice. Okay, so thank you for answering the rapid fire questions.
That's
It's
fun.
always
Yeah.
fun to learn more about our guests. So let's get back to what are some things that you have learned about yourself during the pandemic?
I have learned that I cannot do it all. I have learned it's okay to end the day. I have learned it's okay to prioritize what I want to do. I've been giving myself permission to stop work, whereas before the pandemic I didn't. I have allowed myself I'm a single parent, so I've allowed myself as much time as possible with the boys. I loved quarantining, I'm not going to lie, because of the ability to be with them all day long and really see them as students. I missed my other students and I missed being here, but it was rewarding to see my own kids their organizational skills, their work as students. I really appreciated that time.
And how many consecutive family dinners did you get to have in a row,
Right.
uninterrupted, right? Like same thing, like at my house, I've got a junior, a freshman, and then a first grader and a kindergartner now. So dial it back a year last spring, but
Yeah.
it was like we had gone forever without really a good family
Yes.
sit down dinner. And then we had like 3 months in a row of it.
Mhm.
We talked about that, how it was kind of like us getting to press the pause button and us getting to get back to dial back to where we can feel a balance again. And I do not take that for granted. I know that I was fortunate in that. I know some families weren't that lucky. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. What else have you learned about yourself during the pandemic?
I have learned that honestly, even though I'm 46 years old, I've learned some new organizational skills and always getting better that way. I've learned how to communicate better, and I learned all about Zoom, which the hard way, which I know everybody else did too, but it's been fun to learn new techniques and new technology. Communicating with staff was really, really fun.
Yeah.
One thing that our special education department did was every morning before school started, they did a paraprofessional staff meeting with all 3 teachers, and everybody talked about what the goal was for the day. And that was super rewarding to just be a grounding. I really liked it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the keys throughout this whole thing is that we are learning about ourselves, taking time to reflect on ourselves of what are the things that we want to, what are the things that are worth going back to pre-pandemic? What are the things that we learned about ourselves and our work during the pandemic? And what are some things that we don't want to go back to as we hopefully are getting around the corner? I know that not all school districts are having their numbers go down right now. They're seeing increase in numbers, but hopefully with vaccines and things of that nature that we start working ourselves out of this pandemic. So
The whole keep, start, stop concept can really take a building far, especially right now.
yeah, exactly. Like you've heard that somewhere before, Carey.
Really smart people keep telling me that.
Well, as you were talking about
Yeah.
some of the
You're
things that you learned, I kept waiting for like, and I go to all these regional centers of excellence trainings, and I get to hang out with Kip and Todd on a regular basis, and it didn't.
actually, I was just about to say that for real. I don't know that that would have been possible without the regional centers of excellence. I've been pushing it to other principals. I did a lot of professional development through this, and I don't think that it could have been done without it. I'm super impressed with the facilitating important feedback, or whatever your actual title is, in facilitating
Meaningful feedback. Yeah.
feedback. Wow, like I just set up for next year to get things on a whole new level
Yeah.
for that. The networking with other educators has been vital.
Yeah. It is. I love that session. That's one thing that's near and dear to my heart is giving teachers effective feedback. So that's probably one of the things that we've done as a PLS team that I've really enjoyed is that session right there. So if you want to learn more about that, you can always reach out to Kip or myself, and we can either do some coaching with you or we can hook you up with some upcoming sessions. So Carey, thank you so much. This time has gone by so fast. Thank you so much for joining us today and kind of sharing with us some of the things that you've learned during the pandemic about your work and about yourself. And Kip, I don't know if there's anything that you want to wrap up with here.
No, I love that we stop and we're reflecting on things that we learned and things that we want to keep going forward, right? Like we get to talk about the new normal instead
Yeah.
of what was. It's so refreshing to hear that there's conversations going around of like, why do we grade the way we do? And would we be in a position to have that conversation without the pandemic? In some places, yes. In other places, maybe not. And so I just love that we just get to pause and reflect and think about what could be, and that's exciting for me.
I agree. All right. Well, Kip, you want to take us home?
Yeah, well, that'll wrap up episode 6 of Mined Soda podcast. If you want to reach out to Todd and I, you can find us on Twitter. Todd is at Principal Learner, but he doesn't know how to spell principal. It's
too many characters.
And I'm at Kip Link. And you can also just the hashtag at MinEdSoda, MINN capital EDSOTA. You can make sure you hit like or subscribe on however you're listening to us or watching us. I know we're actually starting to get a decent following on YouTube as we've been moving the video to YouTube, but we're on Anchor, we're on Spotify, we're on Breaker. I think there's actually 7 ways that you can listen or follow us right now. We're still working on getting Apple, so we're getting there.
And when we do that, we are going to celebrate on that next podcast. Like we're going to break out the kid wine and we're going to pop a cork.
So yeah, hopefully Carey, you will help move our average up. Our pilot episode had something like 50 listeners on Anchor, a huge handful on YouTube as well. So Tuesday, Todd, we did not get a big following yet. That one just hasn't taken off, but we didn't have a guest. So I'm confident that by having Carey here, that'll help pick the numbers up.
My parents will listen.
Make sure you share it with them. Share it with your cousins, your friends, your enemies, anyone that wants to listen. And then I'm sure if I share it out with the Western Division MASSP group, they'll be more than happy to start listening in as well. So
Great.
Thanks again, Carey. We appreciate it.
Thank you both.
Yeah, and thank you everyone for listening. Let's wrap this up, Kip.
All right. Hey, we'll be back hopefully next week with another episode of Min Ed Soda podcast. Have a great week.
Take care, everyone.